Let's balance it out a little bit. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'll say a few words, followed by Noah Purcell, my Solicitor General, followed by Colleen Melody, who is the head of our Wing Luke Civil Rights Unit, and then we're happy to take your questions. For those on the phone, we'll try and get to your questions after we take some from the room. Bottom line, this is a complete victory for the state of Washington. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, in a unanimous decision, effectively granted everything we sought. We are a nation of laws. And as I have said, as we have said, from day one, that those laws apply to everybody in our country. And that includes the President of the United States. We've had a chance to take a look at the opinion. And one thing I just want to mention before I turn to Noah, then we'll take your questions, is throughout this litigation, the President has asserted that his actions in signing this executive order are unreviewable. And you heard the question posed by the Ninth Circuit judges in the oral argument this week. The question was asked, is it the view of the Justice Department that those actions are unreviewable? And after a rather lengthy pause, the answer was yes. Here's what the Ninth Circuit had to say about that. There is no precedent to support this claimed unreviewability, which runs contrary to the fundamental structure of our constitutional democracy. I'm so proud of our team. As many of you know, they've been working literally around the clock on behalf of the people of the state of this, on behalf of the people of this state. It's the folks you see here we'll be introducing shortly, but also attorneys and professional staff around our office, in different offices spread out across the state, all working in different ways to assist us with this filing, these filings which have been done under intense time constraints, as you might imagine. So I want to emphasize this has been a team effort from this law firm. It is a very proud indeed for this law office, and I couldn't be more proud of the teamwork that's been involved. With that, I'm going to turn to Noah, who will, I'll ask him to say a few words and also just to summarize essentially what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals did here today, and then we'll have a few words from Colleen. Noah?
Thank you, Bob. What we argued to the court yesterday was that it's the role of the courts to say what the law is and to serve as a check on the executive branch, and that's what the court has done in this opinion, in this excellent opinion, this well-reasoned, careful, thoughtful opinion that seriously considered all of the government's arguments and rejected them. And it's important to recognize the real impact that this has already been having on people's lives. We've just been hearing from people all over the state and all over the country about what a difference this has made, and we're so thrilled for that. And I want to thank Attorney General Ferguson for having the bravery to bring this case in the first place and to authorize us to do all this. Thank the governor and the people of the state for all their support in bringing this case, and most especially I want to thank the people across our office, as the Attorney General was saying, people in my office like Ann Eagler, Kelly Paradis, Kelly Wood, Kristen, Wendy, anyway, I'm going to forget people, but the bottom line is we have an outstanding office here in the AG's office. People do public service every day. We're not usually in the limelight like this, and we're not really used to it, but we're proud to have been able to play this role. Just briefly about the opinion, it is, as the Attorney General said, a complete victory. It upholds the district court's injunction in every respect, and we couldn't be more pleased with how careful and thoughtful the opinion is. The judges did their jobs carefully and well, and we appreciate their work and thank them for the careful attention that they gave to this case. That's all I'm going to say for now. I'll turn it over to Colleen.
And so, no, I think I mentioned, of course, is our Solicitor General, who argued at the hearings before Judge Robart at the trial court level and at the Court of Appeals. And one thing I appreciate is the fact that this case has had there's been an opportunity for the public to see people who work on these cases, folks like the team you see here today. And Noah's a brilliant lawyer. He's doing an excellent job leading this team. Next, I want to introduce Colleen Melody. Colleen is the head of our Wing Luke Civil Rights Unit. I created that unit a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. And as you may know, up until then, if somebody called our office with a civil rights complaint, despite the fact that we have close to 600 attorneys, we did not handle civil rights complaints on behalf of the people of the state of Washington in an affirmative way. which struck me as something that needed to be remedied. So we created a civil rights unit. You're seeing folks who Colleen will introduce who are part of that team. And while I did not anticipate at that time that the magnitude of a case like this, where that team would be pressed into service, I'm so glad and proud that we had a team of excellent attorneys and excellent professional staff in that civil rights unit, but the background, the expertise, and the work ethic, who really were prepared for this moment in time to bring this case to the successful results we've had so far. So Colleen Melody, last name spelled M-E-L-O-D-Y. Colleen.
Thanks, Bob. So I'll pick up sort of right where he left off, that from the beginning on a early Saturday morning when we started talking about how we were going to respond to this case, the people on my team recognized it instantly as a basic fairness, social justice, and civil rights issue. And so I'm very proud of them for stepping up to sort of do whatever was necessary to help get this result that we're talking about today. So I wanted to introduce Marcia Chen, who's an assistant attorney general on our civil rights team, Patricio Marquez, who's on the end there, Mitch Reese, who's over here, and Shalia Stellingzala Ilima, who's in the back, being camera shy. And in addition, the support staff members of our team, Shameen Woods and Maritza Ogaro, have been nothing but patient as we have asked for sort of all kinds of last minute and urgent things over the last couple of weeks. And so I just wanted to say thank you also to the folks in our office. We've had so much support, so many offers of help, so many folks bringing us sort of food and offering legal research assistance and just kind of moral support while we did this. And this is a wonderful office to work in, and it's because of the people in this office. Thank you for being our colleagues and allowing us to do this work for you.
Thanks, Colleen. Before we take questions, one last introduction. Shane Esquivel on the far end here to my left is our chief deputy. Shane's played a key role in this as well and has been a huge help. So Shane, thanks for your help. Last thought before we take your questions. We've been so intensely busy on this case, it's been hard to frankly look up and see what impact is happening. That said, I think Noah went to the outpouring of support from people in the state, just walking down the street. It's hard to get more than a block without someone stopping and saying, thanks for the work on this. And we appreciate that. So for all those who have reached out, the emails that we just have not had a chance to respond to, we appreciate that. Number two, look, the law is not an abstraction. The constitutional provisions at stake are fundamental to who we are as a people. When an executive order is adopted like this, with little thought, little planning, little oversight, that creates chaos throughout our country, that has a real impact on people's lives here and abroad. Real impacts. And as attorneys and as professional staff who work for a public law firm like this, that is something we keep in mind every single day. That yes, when you hear a oral argument with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, it may seem like, hey, what's going on? What are they talking about, that procedural stuff? Behind all that procedural stuff, behind all those constitutional provisions, behind all those statutory provisions, at the end of the day, it's about people's lives and the impact on their lives and the future of our country and our Constitution. And that's why I'm proud of the team for all their work. And I think the people of the state of Washington should be very proud of them as well. With that, we'll turn to questions here, and then we'll try and take a couple on the phone now.
So Bob, can you explain for lay people what this means for people who are traveling, who have visas? Should they still rush to get here, and the time frame of how long this could last?
So Matt, that's difficult to answer, and we're not in a position to give advice to anybody. And even the time period of how long this will last, right? It'll be in the federal government's, it'll be up to the federal government to determine how they want to proceed. But the bottom line is the stay of the ban remains in effect, and at least for the foreseeable future. Is there anything either you want to add to in terms of the timing on this? That's really all we can say. So it's not our role to sort of give advice to it, but it could be in the coming days we get more clarity on the schedule ahead, which might provide more specifics for people. I think would be the key point. Once things settle out from this, we might get more details on a schedule of what's going to happen next.
The President.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Does this mean that the constitutionality of the ban will continue to be argued in federal district court in Seattle or after the appeal in the next circuit?
So the question goes to whether on the merits, the constitutionality, when and where would that be argued? Eventually, what we believe is going to happen is this will go back before Judge Robart at the federal trial court. And as you know, when he issued the temporary restraining order, he was not reaching the merits, right? But in order to rule that a temporary restraining order was appropriate, one of the criteria that Judge Robart had to conclude was that the state was likely to prevail on the merits. So what will eventually happen, we believe, is this will end up back before Judge Robart. At that point, there will be discovery, depositions. There will be a process in which the validity of our claims on the Constitution and statutory claims will be determined by Judge Robart. But it's important to note that in order to get to this stage, he had to determine that the state was likely to prevail on the merits. He had to reach that conclusion in order to issue the TRO in the first place. Yes.
The president has tweeted today, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake." Do you have any response to that?
In response to the president's tweet, well, we have seen him in court twice, and we're 2-2. That's number one. And in my view, the future of the Constitution is at stake. That's at stake as well. And look, we respect that the president has broad authority when it comes to issuing executive orders, but they still have to follow the Constitution. That's the bottom line. And we firmly believe that this executive order does not. We're not just saying that now. The day we filed this complaint, I said I was confident that we were going to prevail for two reasons. I feel very confident in our claims, number one, and very confident in the team behind me to assert those claims in court. So frankly, the decisions so far do not surprise me. The president does have a choice. He can continue to fight this, or he can tear up this executive order and start over. I would strongly encourage him to consider the latter course of action. Yes?
How does it feel going from, when you first filed the complaint, being the only state, and now you have all these other states behind you and everyone else behind you? How has that changed over the course of this piece?
Look, candidly, things have been happening so quickly. There's not been a lot of time for reflection about some issues. That said, I deeply appreciate the broad support from Democratic attorneys general all around the country. I'm in regular communication with them, as you might imagine. The team is in communication with their teams as well. I appreciate the state of Minnesota joining us early on. Other states are now attempting to join, filing their own cases, filing amicus briefs in support. We appreciate that. We think there is strength in those numbers, and so I deeply appreciate their support. Yes. That said, I'm proud that our office was the first. The first to go forward, the first to say directly that the executive order, is unconstitutional.
You said that the Justice Department attorney said that it was not reviewable when responding to the judge. Is that the key answer in this hearing that you heard? And maybe a basis for this whole entire ruling?
You guys want to take issue?
Sure. Well, I think the Ninth Circuit said a lot of important things in this opinion, but one of the key ones is that there's just no precedent to support that argument. The courts have, since the beginning of the Republic, the courts have reviewed what the executive has done, and has done that in times of, in very serious national security cases, have reviewed what the executive has done, and the court said that very clearly, that was its role, and we think that's right.
You talked about the great team that's worked on this case, spending countless hours. How much money has it cost to work on this particular case?
Well, I think most of the hours have been spent on the weekend or after 5 o'clock, and nobody here is paid overtime. That's number one. So I don't have a specific dollar amount. This is what we do, right? I twice filed lawsuits against the Obama administration. Nobody asked me how much it cost, right? So this is what we do. If I believe that the rights of the people of the state of Washington are jeopardized by the action of a presidential administration, it is my responsibility to hold them accountable. It does not matter that President Obama happened to be a Democrat and a person I deeply respect and admire. Irrelevant. If the safety of Hanford workers is in jeopardy, I'm going to hold them accountable to the rule of law. So it's no different here. The occupant of the White House is different, right? And his party affiliation is different, and the issue is different. But at the end of the day, for me, our job, it's our mission, it's what we do, is to make sure that the constitutional rights of our people are upheld, and that's what we're doing here today.
What's your response? We saw a recent poll that showed most of Americans supported the travel ban. Washington State in itself, largely outside of Seattle, is very red. What do you say to people who fear now we are at risk, that the travel ban was there to protect us? What's your response to those people who are concerned?
Sure. First, I don't spend any time looking at polls, right? I look at the law and the Constitution. That's my job. I'll let others speak to polls. Number two, when it comes to national security, part of our case is a declaration affidavit filed by 10, 12 national security experts, bipartisan national security experts, including the former CIA director of President George W. Bush, who say this executive order actually endangers our country, makes it less safe. So we're happy to have that conversation about national security because those experts makes it clear that their view is very different than President Trump's on that score. That said, at the end of the day, look, I get that folks have strong views on both sides of this issue. I understand that. But I would hope that as a people, we can all agree that our Constitution is paramount and that the judicial process has an important role here to determine whether or not the President's actions are indeed constitutional. We shouldn't argue about that, right? And the courts will ultimately decide, and whether the outcome is one that I agree with or disagree with in the day, I will be comfortable with the fact that we went through a judicial process and there was an ultimate determination. I'll be able to live with that. I may not be happy with the final outcome. I may be ecstatic about the final outcome. But again, we're a nation of laws. This needs to go through its course to determine whether or not it is in fact constitutional. We believe it is not.
Looking down the line at the Supreme Court, do you have any doubts about this case based on the justices there?
Look, I would not have filed this case, I can assure you, I did not think we were going to prevail. So I'm confident. I'm confident in this team, and I think it's been clear with 4 judges, 2 appointed by Democratic presidents, 2 appointed by Republicans, who have issued and upheld a stay on an executive order. That is difficult relief to obtain from a court under any circumstances, getting a TRO. It's magnified when you're talking about a presidential executive order of such significance. So I'm confident. There's no guarantees in life, right? But I'm confident, and I would not have brought it unless I thought we'd prevail all the way through the end of this process.
Do you think the laundry list of tech companies and CEOs and being the president is from a very business background had an influence, will have an influence in a future decision he has about this case?
Well, first, I really appreciate the support of businesses like Expedia and Amazon, who on the very first weekend, when we reached out to them, worked over the weekend to get those first declarations in on Monday when we filed. And then, of course, the additional 97 or so companies like Google and Microsoft and others who joined them, we deeply appreciate that. I think for me, it's hard to know what's going to move any particular judge or justice. I can't speak to that. What I can say is I think that those declarations from those many companies goes to the significant adverse impacts this executive order has had on the people and businesses of this state. That executive order, with little thought, little preparation, it's been Keystone Cops when they issued that. And you've seen their statements since, backtracking in some respects. That's not just me talking, that's Republican members of Congress as well, threw a lot of folks in our state into chaos. And so I think it just reflects the strength of our case and the significance of the harm that that executive order created.
Based on the decision that you read today and your interactions with the Justice Department, do you expect that they'll ask for a full court review, Ninth Circuit review, or do you expect that they'll just go to the Supreme Court?
So in terms of what the Justice Department will do next and the President will do next, that's really best directed to them. I can't speak to what they'll do next. That said, whatever they do, I've made it clear we're in this for the long haul, in whichever direction they choose to go. But let me just take for someone on the line, maybe, Peter, does that make sense? I want to give someone a chance. If anyone on the phone line has a chance to,
has been unmuted.
if anybody on the phone wants to ask a question, go right ahead.
YLPI.com.
So go. Hey, hang on. Go ahead, Joel. Sorry, we got a lot of voices on there. I think I heard Joel. I think I heard you. You jump in first if that's you.
All right, Margaret Brennan, thank you so much.
Joel Conley, go right ahead.
Great. Here we go. Get some CBS out.
Well, you have to mute it. These people are- Joel, are you there? Somebody had their.
The following conference commands are available.
Can we try
Press
again?
pound at any time to
Sorry about that.
return to
Let's
the conference.
let's go back. Anyone have any questions here? I'll go back online in a second. We seem to have some technical problems on the phone.
You
Anyone?
mentioned some people reaching out to you during the course of this in support. Any story, any case in particular that comes to top of mind?
I mean, no. I mean, either of you. I mean, there's many, but
Do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, we can trade off.
Yeah, we can trade off. I mean, someone yesterday sent me a link to some students at Washington State University who are originally from Iran put together about impacts on their families. People who, a student who was supposed to go to his father's funeral and couldn't go, a student whose wife was supposed to come join him, a faculty member who couldn't visit his grandchildren. I actually got a letter yesterday from elementary school teacher of mine who was not affected by this order, but who was born in an internment camp, saying how much she appreciated our office bringing this case. So I think there are more stories than we can tell, and I appreciate that you all have been showing those stories, because I think they're, as Bob said earlier, the abstract, these cases can get sort of abstract, but this case has real human consequences. I've gotten more than one email from people saying, "You saved my client's life. They were supposed to come for surgery," or something like that, and we don't get emails like that very often. So with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen.
Before you do, no, you're getting a little emotional about it. This seems to have taken a toll on you. Why the emotion?
Well, I think that, as the Attorney General said earlier, it affects people. It really does affect people. There are people whose lives were just upended by this, and not, the federal government has tried to make it seem like we're bringing this case just on behalf of people who are overseas and who have never been here. And while some of those people may benefit, there's a lot of people who are here who have lived in the United States for a long time, who were harmed severely by this order. And I'm just very happy that we were able to help those folks.
I had a friend who was at the airport to meet one of her clients after the client who lives in the United States, has been here for 12 years and was waiting on his fiance, who had boarded a plane thinking that she was coming from Iraq on the day that the order was signed, and was stopped at her connection, no information about why, and was sent back. And so total chaos and confusion, and then after the judge issued the TRO, she was able to come on the first day that planes landed again at Logan Airport, and she was there to see them hug each other after a terrifying couple of days. And we've heard story after story after story like that. And I think it is something that makes you understand why you do this. This is the reason that you do sort of work on behalf of people, why you do public service, is because there are real people who their lives were thrown into total emergency, no notice, no reason, no understanding why somebody in Washington, D.C. had upended years and years of plans and process, steps that they'd taken when they'd done the right thing to be able to come here.
A couple more questions here before we wrap up.
What additional discovery or evidence could come to light during a full trial? And if it does make it all the way up to the Supreme Court, are you still confident that you guys will win?
So I'll take the latter question and ask Noah or Colleen to take the part about, hey, what sort of evidence might come out when it goes back to Judge Robart, or what evidence we might see. In terms of confidence before the Supreme Court, I hope I'm being very clear. I would not have filed this action unless I expected to win. For a lot of reasons. One, I think we're right under the law. Number two, it was an important case to bring for the reasons that I think you're hearing. But no, I would not have filed unless I expected that we would prevail. And so far, candidly, nothing has really surprised me about the determination so far. It's been very affirming, of course, that all four judges have granted everything we've sought, but I'm confident in the ultimate outcome of this case. No, Colleen, do you want to speak to?
One thing about that, and then maybe Colleen can talk about some of the evidence that might come in later. I guess I just want to add that a lot of people sort of count noses on the Supreme Court about who was appointed by who and what party and such, and it's hard to predict how any particular judge will think about a case, but this is not about partisan counting or anything like that. We really do think that we're right under the law. A lot of the cases that we've been citing and relying on are cases by justices like Justice Kennedy, Justice Scalia. This is not a partisan issue. The idea that the government does not get to just say that something is in the national security interest without sort of having to back that up in any way when they're violating people's rights, there's not a justice that has written that sort of opinion. So it's not a political calculation. It's a calculation that we really believe in our case, and we think we're right on the law, and we just expect that the justices will apply the law as it has been applied, and will follow precedent. So with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen to maybe talk some about some of the evidence we might.
Yeah, at whatever point we're back before the district court judge, we will put on additional evidence about impacts to sort of faculty and students at our universities, out-of-pocket costs that sort of they lost as a result of not having sort of students come and pay fees or tuition that they were expecting, visa application fees that they paid, expecting fully that the immigration system would sort of continue to work. We have lots of stories from individuals in our states, Minnesota and Washington, that were affected in really dire ways. We would plan to present those as part of our due process claims. And we have additional stories from businesses, large and small. I mean, we've talked about Expedia and Amazon, but we've gotten lots of reaches, right, businesses reaching out saying, I'm a small refugee-owned business. I was a refugee. I try to employ refugees, and this really sends a chilling message for the people who work for me, who shop for me, about whether this is going to be a safe country and whether this, is a welcoming place, kind of going forward. So I think that part of the issue is, some of the fear and uncertainty around sort of what's next, and that's something that we would think about putting evidence on about as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The only other thing I'd add is that people should keep in mind that we haven't had a chance to look at all at what's called the discovery process, right, where we ask for things from the other side about what really happened here. We've been relying so far almost entirely on public statements by people in the administration to try to make prove our allegations about motives and things like that. And I think if we're allowed to do this, I think we would like to get some answers about what really was the order of events. We've heard a number of different stories from the administration about who did what and when, and whether whether this was even reviewed by the national security agencies and that sort of thing. And that's an important thing, that the facts about that really do matter to this, and we look forward to investigating those.
And what does that mean? Are you going to subpoena emails of the president and Rudy Giuliani and his statements?
Well, those details will be worked out down the road, but that's the sort of thing that we'd be interested in seeing. And of course, there's rules about privileges and things like that we have to work with. But the bottom line is, you can't just, they can't just say what their motives are. They have to back them up with facts. And that's what we plan to look into.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, you might, yeah.
Just that several of our claims, not all of them, but several of them involve allegations of intent. So a particular action could be against the law or totally compliant with the law, depending on why it was done. And so for our intent claims where we need to show why a certain action was taken, we certainly would be expecting at the district court level to be able to get evidence of, so whose idea was this? What were the reasons for it? What was the evidence for it? Who participated and who was providing information? Those kinds of things that help you get context about, you think about any decision that someone in your life makes, and you ask them sort of, what were you thinking about it, and why did you come to this decision? Those are the same things that happen in the discovery process, where intent is one of the elements.
The president
Yes.
publicly attacked Judge James Robart in a
Yes.
series of tweets. Has your office received any kind of harassment or hate mail threats?
Look, folks have strong views on this case, and sometimes people express those thoughts in unfortunate ways, and I think it's best if I just leave it at that. Any other questions? If not, I apologize to the folks on the phone. We just had some technical difficulties, and so just final thought. We're in this for the long haul. That's been the case from day one. A deep appreciation to the team. And again, I want to reinforce how much we appreciate the people of the state of Washington. We're not exaggerating. People have offered, hey, we'll bring pizza down to your office. We can't accept those gifts, but we appreciate the sentiments. People send flowers. It's been really, maybe the laundry, right? It's not maybe the laundry, except that. But it's been, it really has been, I'm not sure what the right word is, but it's been a really wonderful experience, I think, that folks all around the state, around the country, and really around the world have communicated to the team and to the office about how much this means to them, the personal stories. We've just given you a couple examples. There are many, many others, and we appreciate that. We apologize for not being able to respond to all those. We've talked about how, we just don't have a chance to get through those, but I do want to say to the people of the state of Washington, for those who support what we're doing, we appreciate that. And for those who don't, I guess I just ask that they allow the judicial process to take its course and allow the judges to wait on the Constitution and make an ultimate determination. Thank you so much for being here today. As Noah said, I think after we went to trial court, it's a wonderful day for the rule of law. And if it was a wonderful day after Judge Robart's decision, I'm not sure what can top that, but it really is really an excellent day for the rule of law, and we look forward to future proceedings. Thank you all very much.